Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. My name is Pooja Devedi. Today we are going to talk about exit polls. What are the arguments in favor of conducting exit polls and what are the arguments against the exit poll concept. We will also talk about the difference between exit poll and opinion poll, and from the perspective of GS mains paper second as well as prelims, it is important that you stay with me throughout the segment in order to understand how it all works. So these are the many topics that we are going to discuss step by step. What are exit polls? What are the guidelines to conduct them? If there is any provision in any of the act, how is it different from opinion poll? Arguments in favor and against, and what are the practices revolving around exit polls and opinion polls around the world? And the question will be attached in the comment segment. You have to answer that question and I will take the names of those who have asked my question correctly, and I will also try to get one question in between that will be particularly oral in nature. You have to be very attentive and you will be one of my favorite students. So let us move ahead. Before moving ahead, we have to tell you about the course Elevate 2023 cohort second. This is a mentorship program that is available from 12th of December in online and offline mode. Okay, so you can take advantage of this course by calling on these particular numbers or visiting the Drishti IAS website. Moving ahead now, let's talk about the news. What are exit polls and what rule governs them in India? Now, as we know that elections are going on in Gujarat, Himachal, Pradesh. So, exit polls are being conducted which are painting certain picture which are in favor of one party and not in favor of the other party. That is what we are going to talk about today. That is what are exit poll. This poll is basically a post-voting poll. As soon as the person casts the vote and walks out of the region, the person gets asked question with respect to what is their vote. Now, this is conducted just after the voter walks out after casting their vote. The aim is to predict the actual result, which is based upon the data that the agency is gathering from those persons. And the basic step to predict exit poll is sampling. That means the entire crowd is not asked a question, the same question, but some people from the crowd will be asked the question. And it is conducted either face-to-face or even now in online mode. For the first time ever, it was conducted in 1957 in India after the second general Lok Sabha election, and it was conducted by the Indian Institute of Public Opinion. Alright, now let's move ahead and talk about other important facets. What is the criteria for any exit poll to be conducted so that accuracy is maintained? First of all, sample size should be both large and diverse. In a country such as India, it is important that when we are to make an accurate picture, sample size first it should be large and diversity should be reflected. Apart from that, it should be based on clearly constructed questionnaire. It should not be a question which is very subjective in nature. So it is pretty objective in nature, like which party did you vote for or which candidate was your favorite candidate amongst all. So these kind of clear-cut question without an overt bias should be there. There should also not be biasness that this particular group of persons might have voted for this particular person. So I will ask questions from them only. Then accurate picture will not be maintained. Moving ahead now, if we talk about the provisions of it, section 126A of the Representation of the People's Act of 1951, it puts a ban on exit polls from the period between the commencement of the poll until half an hour the closing of the final phase of the poll. So this is a prelims fact that we have to know. Now, what is the difference between opinion poll and exit poll? The basic difference is the timing. Opinion poll is generally asked before the casting of the vote in order to understand what is the general sentiment of the public, whereas exit poll is asked just after the voting has been conducted. Opinion polls can ask much broader range of questions, such as if the elections were held today, who would you vote for? Do you think the country is moving in the right direction, or do you approve the job the president or the prime minister is doing with regards to foreign policy? In our context, it's much more prime minister. So this can be very subjective in nature, and not a clear-cut question could be asked in opinion poll. I mean, opinion poll, of course, clear-cut question could be asked, but also broader range of questions could be asked, which is not the case with exit poll. Purpose of the opinion poll is more analytical and predictive nature. This is constructed by the news agencies. The news agencies try to gather as much data as possible and present them with subjectivity. And also, this opinion poll can be used by different political parties to do strategic polling system, campaigning of the polling system. Now, what are the arguments in favor of exit poll? There are arguments in favor and against as well. Why it is good, or what are the benefits of conducting exit polls? See, regulating, if there is a regulation or a ban on the conduct of exit poll, it could be seen as a curb on the fundamental freedom of speech and expression under Article 19 and hence Article 21 as well. And of course, every voter has the right to know what is the general sentiment of other people as well, because they might get much more informed which policies of the government are in favor of the country and which aren't. So this is from both the perspective. Now, what are the against ones? See, what happens when exit polls get conducted? It is generally influenced by choice, wording and timing of the question and not of the sample drawn, because the sample in a country like India is not possible to be very accurate with the sampling. Sample, if it is small, then choice, subjectivity, this can influence the general sentiment and hence riots can also take place. Sometimes it can happen that the exit polls which are being conducted, many people or parties, opposition parties say that it is motivated and sponsored by the rivals, so that in order to put a curb on the morale on other parties, this could be done. It can have a distorting effect on the choices that voter make in the protracted election. So if they see the sentiments, I'm talking about both exit and opinion polls. Okay, so it can be in a sense that if suppose we are talking about opinion polls, what happens that I might want to vote for party A, but majority of the people are voting for party B according to opinion poll. Now, although I am having my determination and my grit to vote for party A, but I will see that of course if so many people, if 100 people are going to vote for party B, my vote will go useless, it will be futile. So my sentiment can also get influenced, and sometimes it is also seen that it is not very reliable because the sample size is very small, and sometimes just in order to gain TRP and to gain viewership, the media can also be biased. We can take the example of the 2004 general election, in which exit polls, they show a dramatic return of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. But what happened? Congress came into power. Moving ahead now, let's talk about practices around the world. See, 16 European Union countries, they ban reporting of opinion polls. A full month, but there should be a full month to just 24 hours conduct of it before the polling day. Italy, Slovakia, Luxembourg have a ban of more than 7 days on exit polls. In France, the ban has been reduced, or the curb has been reduced to 24 hours ahead of voting day. In UK, there are no restrictions on publishing results of opinion polls. However, the results of exit polls can't be published until the voting is over. In US, media coverage of opinion poll is regarded as intrinsic part of the free speech, and publication is allowed at any time. Alright, so these are the best practices. Now, there is a question that I will attach in the comment segment. Let me take the names of those who have answered my last question correctly. I asked you two questions. One was written in nature and one was oral. So, many of you have answered it correctly. Let us see. Option A for the last slide question was correct. The question was let me see the question once. The question was related to G20 only. Alright, and many of you have answered it correctly. In which one of the following groups all the four countries members of G20 are present? The answer was Argentina, Mexico, South Africa and Turkey. So many of you have answered it correctly. Neha Keshri has answered it correctly. Okay. Then Koruchul has answered it correctly. Anuj Shri Ramula has answered it correctly. Dinesh, Mahendra, Mayank Agrawal has answered it correctly. Soumya has answered it correctly. Manish has answered it correctly. Ubara has answered it correctly. Faizan has answered it correctly. Sagarika has answered it correctly. Pallavi, Koyal, Tushar, also Sudarshana, Krishna, Riyansh, Rupal, Madhumita, Adarsh, Rahul, Simran, Aditya Birla, also Sapna, Archana, A and B, Samina, Pothu, Anita and Navneet. Okay, thank you so much. Answer my next question correctly and I will take your names in the next segment. All the best and thank you so much for watching.